Life is full of disappointment. It's part of the human experience. There are daily disappointments that make our lives more frustrating and challenging. There are large disappointments, issues and roadblocks we must find ways to overcome. We must learn to rise to the occasion. We must meet that challenge, and we must solve that problem. Then there are deep disappointments. Disappointment that cannot be denied or undone. It hits you right in the gut because deep down, you know that it's more than a setback or a challenge to overcome. There is something that is forever lost, that you can never undo, and that every moment from this day forward is colored differently because of what has just transpired. True earth-shattering disappointment can change lives in an instant. Then there's Star Wars, Episode 1. Welcome to the very first episode of First Draft, Second Pass, a video series where we look at films that feel like first drafts and give them a second pass. I'm Will, and today we are going to be looking at Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. In part 1 of this two-part series, I'll be looking at everything that made this movie so disappointing. Now, I know that there are plenty of people who say they enjoyed this movie when it came out, and I am one of those people. I saw it twice in the theater and even had a Jar Jar Binks poster. But I was also 9 years old, so it's not very novel to say that this movie has a lot of issues, the two most glaring being Jar Jar Binks and Anakin Skywalker. There's really not much to be said about these two characters that hasn't already been said, and honestly, if you don't see what's so problematic with them, you might as well turn this off. These are not the droids you were looking for. So let's quickly recap what happens. Following the direction of the Sith Lord Darth Sidious, the Trade Federation do an illegal invasion of the peaceful planet of Naboo as part of a larger plot to get relief from the Republic's trade tariffs. They try to force the Queen to sign a treaty legalizing the invasion, but are thwarted when two Jedi sent by the Republic's Supreme Chancellor and a local yokel rescue the Queen. Their attempt to get her to Coruscant is briefly sidetracked when they make an emergency landing on Tatooine. Our heroes then beg, barter, gamble, cheat, threaten, and steal to get the parts they need to fix their ship and leave the planet, eventually freeing a little slave boy.
I'm a person, and my name is Anakin.
Ignoring Naboo's cries for help.
You must contact me.
And ruining a local business.
I lost everything.
After arriving on Coruscant, Amidala is told by Palpatine that there is little chance the Senate will act on the invasion, and that the only way to get things to move is call for a vote of no confidence for the Supreme Chancellor in hopes that a new Supreme Chancellor will be less tied down by politics. Once in the hearing, the Senate calls Padme's claims fake news, so at the suggestion of Palpatine, she proposes to out the Supreme Chancellor, which everyone agrees is a great idea because... why? And hey, would you look at that? Palpatine might be the next Supreme Chancellor. But he's too tied down by politics at the moment to do anything about it. Bummer. The Queen then goes to Naboo with a plan to manipulate the indigenous people of her homeland into fighting a war for her, to which they agreed to because Boss Nass was worried that the Nabooans didn't think he was cool enough, I guess. We discovered the Queen was the handmaiden the whole time, well, except when she wasn't, which was about half the time. So a handmaiden with the exact same first name as the Queen starts palling around on behalf of the Queen, and no one notices? They have the same first name. It'd be like if I showed up with a guy who looks a lot like me and said, "This is Will, and by the way, I'm Will as well," and then later said, "Surprise, I was Will the whole time." After a large battle that is 1 part Child Endangerment, 2 parts Three Stooges Act, and 1 part episode of Batman, all baked together in a PlayStation 1 cutscene, the Trade Federation goes to space jail, the Gungans get a parade, Qui-Gon dies, Anakin gets a haircut, and Palpatine is now the Supreme Chancellor. This movie is a Wikipedia page come to life. It's 2 hours long and half of it is in negotiations. Once we get to Tatooine, the movie slows down to a snail's pace and save a 10-minute pod racing scene and 1 quick lightsaber battle. It's a total snooze fest till the third act kicks in proper. I don't understand the Trade Federation. Who are they? What are they? Are they a race? Is it a planet? A company? The main conflict starts after they make a deal with the Sith to put a blockade on the planet of Naboo, and this is somehow supposed to get back at the Republic all because of taxes. And if you're scratching your head wondering, where was this explained in the film, technically here. We don't see the effects of the tariffs, so we don't understand why they would make such a deal with a group who are figuratively and literally the devil. We're only given one explanation. They are greedy. They are the bad guys because this movie needs a bad guy, which makes this actor's accent choice just no good.
My lord, is that legal?
That's racist, right? It's something. It's somethingist. Watching this movie is watching Palpatine play chess with himself, which is about as interesting as watching a person play chess with themselves. The movie twists itself into logical knots trying to justify the political choices being made, all to set up a situation to give Palpatine power that will seem as reasonable as possible, and man, it is not interesting to watch. Then there are the Sith, Darth Sidious and his silent apprentice Darth Maul. Sidious appears almost exclusively as a blue ghost, which means Palpatine comes off as far more sinister. Aside from this line,
Wipe them out. All of them.
and firing this dude, who was replaced immediately with another dude, and I'm sure no one even noticed it was not the first dude, he's just sort of there. Okay, this has been bugging me, but are we not supposed to know that Sidious and Palpatine are the same person?
But which was destroyed? The master or the apprentice?
I mean, it's totally obvious. Right? Right? Also, Darth Maul is barely in this movie. Near the middle of the movie, Padme as the Queen makes an emotional plea to the Senate to save her people and eventually outs the current Supreme Chancellor. While it's a big moment for the character and an even bigger moment for the Star Wars universe, unfortunately, as the audience, we think Padme and the Queen are two different characters. So this is a choice being made by not our friend Padme, but this weird geisha-looking, strangely accented, robotic 12-year-old. Can we take a moment to imagine just how awkward it must have been after the handmaiden orders her queen to clean R2-D2?
Padme, clean this droid up as best you can.
Bold move. This brings me to my biggest point. Qui-Gon Jinn is a bad person.
It's not disrespect, Master, it's the truth.
While the rest of the galaxy is dealing with trade blockades, illegal invasions, and political coups, Qui-Gon is betting everything the Queen owns on a young street rat he's fallen in love with in hopes he'll win a mechanical horse race so he can seal him away from his loved ones and indoctrinate him into his cult of telekinetic space cops. If you think I'm being unfair with my assessment, here's why you're wrong. Qui-Gon is a jerk to every single person in this movie.
I have a bad feeling about this.
I don't sense anything. No more commands from my hands today, Captain.
The Queen is not.
Queen trusts my judgment, young handmaiden. You should too. You almost got us killed. Are you brainless?
I speak.
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent. Now get out of here.
He won't use his powers to help the Queen,
And we cannot use our power to help her.
but will use his powers to steal a ship from Boss Nass.
Could use a transport.
He says this about the Trade Federation,
These Federation types are cowards.
and for all we know, that's a racial slur. And he chooses to bring Jar Jar to Tatooine, but doesn't want to bring Padme. That's not only stupid, it's sexist. Also, he gives up immediately on freeing Anakin's mom.
Pod is worth 2 slaves, not by a long shot.
The boy then. I tried to free your mother, Annie.
Did you, though? So, gambling is bad, but cheating is okay only if you use it to cheat at gambling to prove a point about how bad gambling is.
Whenever you gamble, my friend, eventually you lose.
But you cheated. That doesn't... The only person he's nice to is Anakin. During a dinner, Qui-Gon becomes passionately convinced that he's the chosen one after Anakin notices he has a laser sword. The very next day, based on this alone, he bets his and everyone else's future on Anakin's ability to channel the Force while pod racing. But we don't really see why he has this faith. Qui-Gon confirms his gamble by checking his blood, but only after he's made this bet. By his own admission, Anakin has never even finished a race. Where was Anakin's midichlorians then? If he's so great with the Force now, why hasn't he won before? What's the difference? All this blind faith could maybe be forgiven if Anakin wasn't an unbelievable little shit.
Wouldn't have lasted long anyways if I wasn't so good at building things.
He's arrogant and obnoxious and has every single one of the worst lines.
Now this is pod racing.
When taken all together, it starts to paint Qui-Gon in a very different light. I mean, he brings a child to a war zone.
Stay in that cockpit.
What are you doing, man?
I'm sure Qui-Gon doesn't want to put your son in danger.
Yeah, you'd be wrong about that.
Perhaps I killed a Jedi and took it from him.
No one can kill a Jedi.
I wish that was so.
Yeah, he totally did that.
I hope you didn't kill anyone I know for it.
This film doesn't understand its audience. Not just the specific people who came out to see the movie, but what audiences are looking for when they go see a movie. The humor is too stupid for a movie that's trying too hard to be smart. It's paced like a teenager driving stick shift, and the main characters, either by design or accident, are plastic and less charismatic than what is basically a beeping trash can. It cuts corners, it assumes too much, it gives too little, and simply doesn't do the work. The original Star Wars movie is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's laugh-out-loud funny, it's exciting, the characters are interesting and dynamic, and Darth Vader is genuinely terrifying. It's just a triumph of a movie that doesn't try to be smarter than it is. And it made space nonsense cool. So let's try this again. Next episode, Fixing the Phantom Menace.